Hello students, today's agenda is to check homework. We'll be learning absolute value and you will be able to do 4.5. Today students will be able to set up and solve absolute value equations from word problems. And what is absolute value? Absolute value is the distance between the number and 0. For example, in here we have 0 to the right, we end up at 3, and we have 3 spaces to the left, we end up at -3. The absolute value of -3 is equals to 3 spaces. You have 3 spaces between. The absolute value of 3, again, you have 3 spaces. So we can say that the absolute value of something is always positive. Some people call these the magic sticks because it makes everything inside positive. And you can take the absolute value of something only when you have a number. Not when you have an expression, you would have to solve for that. Before we start, if you can pause the video and solve for x as a warm-up. In here we have 2x plus 3 equals 5. 2x plus 3 equals -5. The only thing that changed is this part in here, and we'll see why. We subtract 3 from both sides, and you get 2x equals 5 minus 3 is 2. If we're multiplying, the opposite is to divide, and x equals 1. On this side, we subtract 3 from both sides. We get 2x equals -8. If we're multiplying, the opposite is to divide, and x equals -4. For the next two, we have -2x minus 3 equals 5 and -2x minus 3 equals -5. So we add 3 to both sides. -2x equals 8. And we divide. Remember that in division we divide by the same sign. And x equals -4. In here we add 3 to both sides. We get -2x equals -5 and +3. We subtract and leave the greater sign, so it's going to be -2. If we're multiplying, the opposite is to divide by -2. And so x equals negative divided by negative is positive. 2 divided by 2 is 1. If you haven't seen an absolute value, maybe this won't make sense, but if you have seen it a little bit before, I want you to notice something, that if we have the absolute value of 2x plus 3 equals 5, you will always have two different answers. For the absolute value, what you do is take this inside of the absolute value, take it out, 2x plus 3, and then just have the 5 be positive or negative. And also in here, you would take the absolute value of -2x minus 3 equals 5. Again, you keep whatever is inside of the absolute value, but then you change one time positive, one time negative for the answer. And so that's how you would find the values. That's what we were trying to do here with this warm-up, is just to show you without having the actually absolute value, but to set it up, that's what you would do. Just get this and equal it to the answer, one time positive and one negative. Now let's apply that to word problems. What does the difference between 7 and 4 mean? Difference just means subtraction. Okay, so it would just, if you say the difference of 7 and 4 is just 7 minus 4. Okay, difference is subtraction, and so 7 minus 4 is 3. And what that means is basically how many spaces are between 4 and 7. 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can see that there is 1, 2, 3 spaces between them. Okay, the difference between those two numbers is 3 spaces. Now for number 2 says, what numbers are 3 spaces away from 5? You can draw your number line, right? And we have 5 in here, 6, 7, 8. That will be 3 spaces, and then we will also have 3 spaces the other direction, so 5, 4, 3, 2. So those will be the answers, 2 and 8. Now we can use absolute value to actually find those two answers. And so you know that the difference, right? The difference between 5 and the two numbers that we're going to find is 3 spaces. So we're going to do this. The difference of the numbers that we're trying to find minus the number that we know we have should be equal to 3 spaces away. Okay? We're trying to find the numbers whose difference is 3 spaces. Okay? Just like in here. The difference is 3 spaces. So now we're finding two numbers that their difference is 3 spaces. So now we can use the absolute value by having x minus 5 equals 3 or x minus 5 equals negative 3. Remember that we're going to change the answer. 1 positive, 1 negative. Now we add. If we're subtracting, the opposite is to add. And so x equals 8, which is this right here. For the other one, again, we cancel by adding. And so x equals negative 3 plus 5 equals 2 because we subtract and leave the greater sign. So that's the other number. So that's how you would use absolute value to solve these simple word problems. What numbers are 3 spaces apart from 10? Apart or away from 10 will be the same. Now we're not going to draw the number line, but again, we set it up as the numbers that we're looking for. The difference between those numbers and 10 is equals to 3 spaces away. We take this inside of the absolute value, so x minus 10 equals 3 and x minus 10 equals negative 3. If we're subtracting, the opposite is to add. And so x equals 13. For the other one, again, we add. And x is equals to different signs. We subtract and leave the greater sign. So 10 minus 3 is 7. So the two numbers that are 3 spaces away from 10 is 13. So it makes sense. 10 plus 3 is 13. And also 7 because 10 minus 3 is 7. And now we have some word problems related to tolerance, which is room for error. Number 4 says, a piece of wood should measure 32 inches. You have a tolerance of 1 inch. What is the maximum and minimum size of this piece of wood? Again, we can use absolute value. So we're looking for numbers that are possible to measure up to what numbers. And so it's x minus the number that we have. And the tolerance is 1 inch. So we get this, x minus 32 equals positive 1, and x minus 32 equals negative 1. We cancel by adding 32 to both sides. This cancels, and so x equals 33. Or we add 32 to both sides, and x equals negative 1 and positive 32 is 31 because we subtract and leave the greater sign. So that means that the wood can measure between 31 and 33 inches. This will be the maximum and this will be the minimum size. So the minimum is 31 inches and the maximum is 33 inches. Okay. For number 5, you were asked to bring cheese to a party. You were asked to bring 3.5 pounds. you could be off by 0.21 pounds. What is the minimum and maximum amount of cheese you can buy? And in reality, when you go to the store, they don't give you exactly 3.5 pounds. So in here again, you're going to put what are the maximum and minimum amounts will be represented by X minus the amount that you know you need to bring, and the tolerance will be over here, which is 0.21. Now we put X minus 3.5 equals 0.21 and X minus 3.5 equals negative 0.21. And so we add 3.5 to both sides. This cancels. I kind of squished it because I wanted to align the decimals, but that's okay. So 1 plus nothing is 1. 2 plus 5 is 7. Decimal points in addition are aligned and you just bring it down, and then 3. So 3.71 pounds is the maximum. Add 3.5 to both sides on this as well. This cancels and you get X equals. Now in here we have to subtract. And it's the bigger minus the smaller, but then get the greater sign. Since this is greater, it's going to be positive. If you want, you can rearrange, but it's 3.5 minus 0.21. Okay? Since there is nothing in here, we put a 0 and borrow. 10 minus 1 is 9. 4 minus 2 is 2. And 3 minus 0 is 3. So 3.29 will be the minimum. And so the sentence, I'm not going to be able to fit it in here, but the minimum is 3.29 pounds and the maximum is 3.71 pounds. Number 6 says you can have between 3.3 and 3.7 pounds of rice for a party. What is the tolerance here? So now what we want to do is find the absolute value. Remember that we subtract. To get the tolerance, all you have to do is subtract the minimum and the maximum from each other. But it's always positive. It's the absolute value. I put the smaller one here first on purpose because we have to subtract, but if you do the other one, you should be able to do the same, get the same. For this one, we would get negative because the biggest is the negative, and 3.7 minus 3.3 is 0.4. For this one, 3.7 minus 3.3 is 0.4. The absolute value of a negative number is always positive, so it's 0.4, and also of a positive number. The absolute value of 0.4 is 0.4. So it doesn't matter the order that you put, because of the absolute value, it will always be positive. Okay, so the tolerance, yes, you can just subtract 3.7 minus 3.3. However, using the absolute value, if you subtract the smaller minus the biggest, you still have a positive answer. Okay, with this, we finish our lesson. If you can please give us a thumbs up, subscribe around here. This is the link to the entire unit. Here you will find the link to the next video. Now you're able to do 4.5 and have fun.